The Las Vegas Raiders lost 3 of their last 4, finishing the season 8-8 and out of the postseason for a 4th straight year. Derek Carr, 2 years left on his deal, but there are rumors that Jon Gruden could be looking to go in a different direction. They've got a lot of weapons on offense, one of the top tight ends in the game. They've got some good young receivers, got a great young running back. They were 6-3, everything looked good. And then everything fell apart, especially on defense. 30th in the league in points allowed per game, averaging about 30 a game. Derek Carr did have the best passer rating of his career at over 101, but will that save his job in Vegas? Chris Hassel joined by Danny Kanell and host of the Pick Six podcast, Will Brinson. And Danny, we'll start right there. I got a two-parter. Should Derek Carr get another year? Will Derek Carr get another year?
I think he should. I'm a believer in Derek Carr from the standpoint of we've seen him consistently deliver solid quarterback play that's good enough to get you in the Super Bowl. You mentioned some of those stats on the defensive side of the ball. That was more of the issue for the Raiders than it was on the offensive side of the ball. Now, then you follow, but I do think Derek Carr has his limitations. He's sort of in that Kirk Cousins camp where you have to put him in a position to succeed. You have to give him a better defense. I don't think he's the type of quarterback who's just going to put the Raider on his back and and just run away with the season. I don't think he's that type of quarterback. And the follow-up was, do I think they will? I don't. This to me kind of reminds me of the things that you used to hear from the Rams. There were always these rumblings. Well, man, they felt they could get a little bit better than Jared Goff. We hear the same things in the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo. They feel like they get a little bit better. It just seems like there's these undertones of we just wish we had that quarterback that could take us there, that could put the team on his back. The problem is there aren't that many that exist out there. You could maybe go after Deshaun Watson if you're in those sweepstakes, which I do think would be an upgrade. If that's the question, then yes, I would say make that move. I don't know if they pull that off, though. I think ultimately when it comes down to it, I don't know if they can actually pull that off. And so I think Jon Gruden kind of has to work with what he's got, but what he's got is a really solid quarterback. So I think he will be there as the quarterback for the Raiders for this season. And at some point, you mentioned missing the playoffs 4 straight years. If this season, if they don't make the playoffs again, how about we stop questioning the quarterback and we start looking at the coach who signed the 10-year deal? Like that to me, because Derek Carr has delivered consistently on the field, to me, Jon Gruden deserves some criticism if they miss again. Now, they've gotten better and better and better, so that's the good news, but it is starting time to deliver on some of that $100 million contract that he got.
Yeah, so I think it was Ryan Wilson or somebody put Gruden on the hot seat on our podcast. I don't disagree that they need to play, they need to win more games. I just don't think you put the guy who has more power than the owner on the hot seat. It just doesn't work like that. As for Carr, look, the reality is that the Raiders are in a really good spot here with him. They can cut him if they wanted to and would have $2.5 million in dead cap space, would save a ton of money on the salary cap right now if they did. Next year, they can cut him with no dead cap money. And so the contract is really friendly for his production. And at the same time, you can go out there and you can explore other possible avenues sort of behind the scenes, right? You can inquire about Deshaun Watson. They probably got involved to a degree in the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes. You can look at other quarterbacks in the draft and scout them and not feel like you're harming Derek Carr because he's just not that caliber of guy where it's insulting to do it. And he's also 30 years old this season, so we're not talking about a spring chicken here. The one thing I would worry about if I'm Jon Gruden is that the dude moved next door to me in Vegas. That's really weird. Why would you do that? You can picture that Kardashian gif where he's like creeping through the bushes and like, hey, John, like what's going on? You're like, what are you doing here? If he gets traded somewhere else, he gets traded to Seattle, does he move next to Pete Carroll and just hang out? That would be a weird coupling. Russell Wilson's the other thing they can look at too. He's on the list, or Las Vegas is on the list. I wouldn't mind if they tried to find an upgrade. But I also don't mind if you go with the status quo, given how friendly his contract is.
And again, as we've talked about, much of the needs are on the defensive side of the ball. Ryan Wilson put together a list of those needs. And look, there are some offensively as well, but defensively, it's every level. I mean, it's defensive line, it's linebackers, it's safety. Danny, everywhere you look on D, they've got a hole to fill.
Everywhere outside Jonathan Abram, who I think is a really solid player, is going to be a great player after he comes back from injury. He's going to be a solid player there. But they have issues across the board at every level. When you're 30th in the NFL in several categories, towards the bottom of the barrel, most of them, a lot of times it is personnel that they have to address. I would love if they took a swing at Jadeveon Clowney, who's a player who's got a unique personality. Some teams have had success with him, others haven't. I think John Gruden loves taking kind of reclamation projects and says, hey, I can make the most out of this player where the talent is there. Or you take a swing at Melvin Ingram, who would be an instant upgrade as a pass rusher out there. And then I mentioned, Jonathan Abram out on that side. Putting another safety like Marcus Williams on the other side of him would instant upgrade at the secondary, where you are going to have to go against Patrick Mahomes. That's probably, these stats are probably skewed because they do have to play Patrick Mahomes twice every single year. But remember, this is one of the only teams, there were only 2 teams that legitimately beat the Chiefs last year. The Raiders were one of them, the Bucs in the Super Bowl. I know Chargers fans might say, what about us? But that was a throwaway game. So they've got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. You don't have to become dominant, but you've got to become adequate where you can get some stops at some point. They just could not get off the field last year.
Yeah, I mean, really, like everything they do sort of has to be focused on the defense. And it's kind of difficult to put together a list of free agents they should target because they need all of them. This is a bad defense. And they're switching, of course, you go from Paul Gunther. Now you're going to Gus Bradley. I mean, I think you need to find some more pass rush help. Cleveland Farrell hadn't really panned out exactly the way you wanted him to. Of course, Max Crosby, a really nice find in the 4th round of the 2019 draft. But they need to get better at every single level. They need to bring in more guys who can rush the passer. And I think one of the ways you can kind of get creative here, and we'll see if they want to do it with Gus Bradley. Are they going to bring in the Bradley-style corners that fit that cover 3? Or are they going to, try and beef up the pass rush and just send waves of pass rushers to make it easier on the guys in the back end? I kind of like that sort of mythology, but I don't know that they'll exactly be willing to do that. And you see, you're already going to be losing some of these other guys, cast-offs from the Atlanta Falcons. Man, I mean, it's a lot of work to be done on this defense if they want to be a contender, and you don't want to be in the same division as Patrick Mahomes with a bad defense.
Okay, early expectations then for the Vegas Raiders, Danny. You kind of hinted at it. If they don't make the postseason next year, the heat starts really turning up on John Gruden.
And I think it should. I mean, he comes in there riding the Super Bowl with his Tampa Bay Bucs and an incredible, a broadcasting career, and he was supposed to be this kind of virtual guarantee that the team is going to be back. Well, at some time, this is a results-driven business. You have to deliver on the contract that you've been given. Now, he's probably going to be safe off that 10-year deal, but at some point, there has to be some criticism directed at John Gruden. I do think, and this team fell apart late, but they did show flashes of brilliance where they could get there, and Derek Carr showed he's capable. If they do address these issues on the defensive side of the ball, I think they could be a playoff team. I would not pick them. I wouldn't put money on it. I think this team is probably going to be around 500 or below it this season. A lot of it has to do with the strength of some of the other teams in the AFC, so I think it's more of a long shot. So I think we will be looking probably, because if John Gruden is not going to get fired anytime soon, you're probably going to move on from Derek Carr unless he does take him to the playoffs this season. So I think you're going to be looking the Raiders kind of mired in what do we do at quarterback once again after the season is over, even though I don't think it necessarily means Derek Carr is going to have a worse year than he's had the last 2 or 3 years. I just think that he'll get most of the blame for it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Danny. I can see them not meeting expectations, not making the playoffs, and then saying, it's on Derek Carr, not the defense. And look, this is not a Derek Carr. I'm not a huge Derek Carr stan by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't want anything. I mean, look, he's fine. He's a good quarterback. He doesn't bring the offense down. You put the right pieces around him, he can elevate it, and that offense should be good again. John Gruden's been a very good play caller. We just don't know how he's been about building a roster, and you can't really take any of that action on Las Vegas, I don't think. I mean, Derek Carr to win the MVP, I don't see that happening. I don't see the Raiders winning the AFC West, not with Mahomes there, of course, and Andy Reid. And I think when you look around, if Denver can improve the quarterback situation, and we think that the Chargers have gotten better with their coaching staff, and that defense can stay a little bit healthier, I mean, it's possible the Raiders are headed towards the basement of this division, even as they float around 500 and contend for the playoffs. So we just haven't seen enough from that defense to believe that they can really take a huge leap forward and make the playoffs. So I think a playoff berth would be a nice job by Las Vegas and would certainly go above and beyond expectations from the general public.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.